Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We are defining the inventory redistribution process at Fastenal, and our group members are Nicolette Fusco, Karina Gonzalez, myself, Liv Molinari, and Lacey Weissman. So here is an outline of how our presentation will go. We will start with define phase, then go to measure, then analyze, improve, and finally control. Our process background, we've been analyzing Fastenal in Egg Harbor City, New Jersey. They're an industrial supplies company and they provide product and service solutions for contractors, engineers, manufacturers, and walk-in customers. Lacey works there, so she visited about 3 times a week starting from October 12th to November 13th, which is when we were able to gather our data. The problem, Fastenal Company's inventory redistribution process is approximately 15% of the services they provide annually. By improving the efficiency of this process, it will help improve labor and reaction time that will help Fastenal decrease their inventory holding costs and enhance customer input levels, which is needed for their $1.4 billion in annual revenue. Our team will work to reduce the inventory redistribution process within a 4-week time span throughout the fall semester. So we split our problem statement into SMART goals. So for specific, we said that we would shorten IRs by 1/3 to enhance efficiency and customer input. For M, measurable, we will track the progress through a performance percentage from upper management. For A, attainable, it will provide recommendations for adjustments to the process. R, relevant, allows Fastenal to decrease inventory holding costs and enhance customer inputs. And T, as we said before, we analyze the process over a 4-week time span during this semester. The needs of the customers, so we divided it into dissatisfiers, satisfiers, and delighters. For dissatisfiers, the main things we noticed were long completion times, wrong products delivered or not on time, and price not being competitive. Satisfiers included IRs that were accepted with minimal declines, ones that were completed in a few days and delivered accurately and on time, and prices that were adequate to what the customers were looking for. Delighters included IRs that were completed the same day as ordered, ones that were fast and efficient, and prices that were very competitive. As you can see to the right, we have our critical to customers and critical to quality. So critical to customers was efficient reduction of the list, accuracy in product delivery, and price. And critical to quality was completed in the same day, fast delivery, products are in good condition, and fair prices.
So for as-is process map, it went through the upper management sending an email out to the branch. And when the branch receives the email from upper management, it goes through an approval process to make sure that the products would be put into the POS system. And once the upper management receives that email back from the general manager at the branch, the upper management puts it into the IRS system, and that takes about a day. When that happens, afterwards, the employee checks the IR list when they usually come into work, and then they print out the inventory list. Then it moves to the process of picking the part number. And if the part number cannot be found or it's held for a customer, it's declined in the system. But if they can pick the part number and it's not held for a customer, they accept it in the system, they print the label, they package the product, and then they put it into the composite for pickup. So this is our value stream map. And what we did was we listed the times it took to get to each step through our data. We found this information from our data. So the emailing the general manager, we classified it as value adding, non-necessary. And then for the receives email from upper management, that's non-value adding, and same thing with the approval process. This takes a good amount of time. It's kind of like a wait time. And then when it goes back to the upper management, that's NVAN, and then it moves back to the IR, putting the IRs in the POS system, and then it goes through the whole process. So the main thing that took the most amount of time was putting the IRs into the POS system. And then the next thing that took the most amount of time would definitely be checking the IR list in the POS system, because at times the employees don't know how much time, like if the system was updated with the new IRs. And then another thing that we found was that when the employee picks the part number, it can take a good amount of time for this, because locations could be wrong within the system, and then we won't be able to find the product in the actual store. And then so we'll have to go and try to think of like when it was last picked, or when inventory transactions happen, and we have to go back into the data and see if we can find where this part is in the store. And if we can't find this part, we have to adjust our inventory levels. But if we can find the part, we do accept it into our system and then go through that process of getting it on a truck so it could go back out to the distribution centers or the other branches that's needed. It only takes a few minutes to print the label, mainly seconds really. And then also for putting it in the composite. So these things are kind of necessary to have there, but they are the most, I would say, like efficient parts of the process, because it takes the quickest amount of time. Next slide, please. So when we put our data into Disco, we found some bottlenecks that were occurring. So the first bottleneck was putting inventory redistribution into the POS system, and then the employee checks the system. This definitely causes delay due to the wait time for updated parts in the system. It takes a while, so our solution for this was to automate the system for less frequent employee checks. And then, so another bottleneck we found was print the inventory redistribution list and pick the part number. So this causes delay because the employee needs to print it out, look for what part number it is, where it's at, what location it is in the store, and then they go and try to find the product. And like I said earlier, sometimes the product isn't in the correct location. So that can definitely cause delay. So our solution for the problem was to implement QR codes to locate parts and manage the inventory better. And then our final bottleneck that we found was accept or decline parts and package the product. So if the part cannot be found, it takes a lot longer, causing extra processing and labor time. It takes a lot more steps in the process. It takes a lot more looking into the old data to see if we can locate the part. So our solution for this was to ensure the warehouse is orderly and parts can be found. And they usually do this through cycle counts and things like that. So that's definitely a thing that needs to increase in this process as well. Next slide, please. So here's our calculations. We found that our cycle time was an average of 35 hours, 35 minutes, and 53 seconds. As you can see, the breakdown, it was mainly the putting the IRs into the POS system took the longest, and then checking the IR system could take a pretty long time because sometimes the employees don't know that the system was updated, so we have to keep checking back. And then also we have other things going on in the store, so this could take up to 10 hours or so. And then declining IRs can take 15 minutes for the example of we don't know if it was in the system earlier and we have to go back and find the data. And then we found that our takt time was about a little less than an hour per IR. And that's considering the 40-hour work week with about 72 IRs during that weekly time span. The IRs fluctuate during the week, so this could increase or decrease depending on the week. So yeah, next slide, please. So our calculations for value adding time, non-value adding time, and non-value adding necessary time is very different here. So our value adding time was 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Our non-value adding time was 30 minutes. And our non-value adding necessary time was 1 day, 11 hours, 1 minute and 33 seconds. So as we can see, we could probably take out in the process the approval for the inventory list, because this deducts from our process, like getting done in efficient time. But also if we can somehow manage to get our non-value adding necessary time down, that would be a good thing as well, because our value adding time is less than 5 minutes long. So by decreasing, trying to decrease and become more efficient in these processes, it would be a good thing. And as I said earlier, putting the IRs into the POS system is definitely like time consuming. So if we can find a process that kind of helps with that, that would be a good thing. Next slide, please. And then, so when we put our data into Disco, this kind of reiterates the same things we were finding from our calculations before, that it was the longest to put the IRs into the POS system. And then it also took a long time for the employee checks for the POS system. The graph kind of shows that all the other processes are very minimal compared to putting the IR into the POS system and the employee checks in the system. Next slide, please.
So this is our fishbone diagram. Some of our problems included lack of customer relationships, the need for improvement of the IR time, products falling off the list after 10 days, and employees taking way too long to complete the IR list. Some of our causes of these problems would be not enough time spent with the customers. Employees are spending too much time doing IR. The wrong products were delivered. Products were not on time or delivered to the right customer. Fastenal doesn't analyze their IR processes. Employees are monitored by upper management on how well they complete this process, which tends to take them longer because they try and do it right, considering they're being watched and monitored in this process. Labor and reaction time will improve, but Fastenal decreases their inventory holding cost. Next slide, please.
Next, we had our hypothesis testing. So we followed the steps we learned in class. First, we identified a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. So the null was mu is less than or equal to 1.52 days, which was our cycle time, but in days. And our alternate hypothesis was mu is greater than or equal to 1.52 days. We determined that this is a mean statistic, so we used the mean formula, and we determined the rejection region as Z star is greater than Z alpha, with a probability of alpha being 0.05. So we calculated the statistic using those variables, and we were able to determine that Z star is negative 465.6, which does not fall in our rejection region, so we failed to reject our null hypothesis. Next slide, please.
So our outcomes and factors within our analysis, overall, we found that the value adding time, as Lacey said, was 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The non-value adding time was 30 minutes, and the non-value adding necessary time was 1 day, 11 hours, 1 minute and 33 seconds. We also found that Fastenal inventory redistribution process approximately 15% of the services they provide annually. And with this information, we plan to offer solutions that could help with improving Fastenal current data and ultimately, therefore, overall performance. And within the next slide, you will see what we offer as a solution to fix these issues.
So some of our solutions, the longest part of the process, as we have heard before, is the employees putting new IRs into the POS system, which takes one full day. This process may be able to speed up if it was not completed through email interchange, if only trained employees were assigned to this role of the job, or if this was an automated system completing the job, this would ultimately speed up the process. Since upper management tracks performance percentage of employees in this way, it may help for them to track it in an alternate way. This alternative would allow employees more time to spend with customers to build sufficient customer relationships. Next slide, please. So our cost benefit analysis, our cost would be the time spent on training new employees on IR processes and implementing automated systems for less frequent employee checks. The benefits would be taking employees out of the IR process so they can build relationships with customers, and this could ultimately bring in more customers. Next slide, please.
So the benchmarking industry practices. So we plan every 6 months, the managers will get together to analyze the process map and see if there has been improvements or fallouts of the plan. And once it's analyzed, and if there's sections to be improved, those actions will be implemented. And this will push Fastenal to be more proactive than reactive when it comes to problems within their business process. And employees will be evaluated based on their service to customers quarterly to ensure that Fastenal is providing the best service to their customers. And if employees are not performing up to standards, they will be sent to mandatory training with managers. And like I said, they will be evaluated more based on their service than the IR process now. And this is our to-be chart. So to implement what was stated, there will now be a designated employee manager for receiving and approving the IR list instead of just all employees. Once approval is received, it will now be automatically put into the POS system. And this will ultimately save time and enhance efficiency within the IR process.
Okay, so for control, in order to keep our recommendations implemented, we need to ensure that upper management finds a new way to track performance percentage. Since employees may not be working with IR like they did in the past, they will be able to finally spend more time helping customers and establishing relationships. Perhaps management can find a way to track employees' performance in customer relationships, like Karina said. We should also ensure that management understands their new roles and how to adjust to them correctly. Next slide, please.
So monitor process performance. Employees will not be evaluated less with the speed of the process from receiving the order to it being ready to pick up, like stated earlier. Instead, they will be tracked on how many meaningful customer interactions they had throughout their shift. This will be tracked by both the employee and customer. The employee will tally in a document if they felt their interaction was meaningful with the customer, while the customer will be offered to fill out a survey of their service experience. And every quarter, a manager will then have one-on-ones to discuss employee performance and how they can improve their servicing skills. So lessons learned. We have learned that improving the IR time was a priority because it was making the process less efficient. We learned that it was a great idea to let employees to focus on building customer relationships. The better their service Fastenal could provide, the more returning and new customers they will receive in the future. We learned that some steps of the process, although time consuming, they are needed and could not be changed because they are vital for getting the task accomplished.
And for our executive summary, in the defined stage, the Fastenal company's inventory redistribution process is approximately 15% of the services they provide annually. In the measure stage, our cycle time was 35 hours, 35 minutes, and 53 seconds. And our tack time was 0.55 hours of IR. In our analyze stage, we determined the major bottleneck to be putting inventory redistribution into the POS system. In the improved stage, our analysis has shown that the bottleneck step is non-value adding but necessary. We have also learned that automating this step or training specific employees to complete this task can save hours. And in the control stage, the process will continue to be measured after the new system is created and implemented, and results will be monitored. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
So now we just open the floor for any questions or comments.
So if you don't have any comment, let me give you a few comments.
I actually ask a question.
Okay.
So you said that I don't remember what slide it was on, sorry. But the like actual time that was like spent during the process, like actually doing the work, what was that again? It was like only like about an hour, right? Or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what slide it was on. Sorry. Oh wait. Maybe it's the next one. Maybe the next one. I don't know. I don't know what I was where it was, but what like other kind of like, because you said this was like only like 15% of the business. So like, what other stuff does Fastenal do that like this isn't like the main function that the business does, correct?
No, not at all. This is just because Professor Rose said he wanted like something that was meaningful
Yeah.
in this, like in the service, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is building those customer relationships so they can get sales and things like that. It's mainly, in a sense, it's kind of like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, but they build better relationships with the services or with the customers so that they can go out and give them what they need. So they'll actually show up to like work sites and job sites and things and give them the tools and the things they need for that specific site. So like this is all like about inventory and like shrinking our inventory to help give us more time so we are able to do those types of things.
So that you're able to actually, so by decreasing the inventory, you're able to like streamlining your inventory. It gives you more time to then focus on your customers, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Okay, guys. So let me give you a few comments, then we'll move on to the next presenter. So first of all, I would like to commend you for collecting the data and doing a good job, hitting most of the points very well. So I am very glad because you chose a relevant topic and also collected the data. You said 72 items you have collected, I think. That's what I saw. And you run DISCO well and found all the statistics. That's great. So a few things that I want to mention here is, first of all, since you have collected data and ran DISCO, you could have done more analysis with DISCO, such as variance, right? So you have a few variants, I think, which one goes through, like variant 1 would go through A to Z process, but variant 2 might go through A to K only, that I mentioned to you before. So I don't think all the process will go through the same thing. So that could have been analyzed more. And I also like to mention about this hypothesis testing. I know X equals 0.55, this X is top time, right? I think it might be more proper to use top time as mu and cycle time as X. I think that's more relevant to your case, but it looks like it's a bit, switched So that I see here. And for your information, null hypothesis should not include equal sign. So I would drop equal sign, but just leave less than equal to. And then mu should be less than 0.55. And alternative hypothesis should say mu is greater than or equal to 0.55, and then conduct the hypothesis. Then you would have different result, because you see that your cycle time is much longer than top time, and that's the problem that you are facing right now. And that is not shown in your hypothesis testing because the numbers were switched. And I have a question about 0.55, that is from your top time. And IR is, as far as I understand, it's an inventory request, right? IR stands for inventory request. What is it again then?
It's inventory redistribution.
Okay, so inventory redistribution. And can we go back to the top time slide? Okay, so here we go. So you have 72 in inventory redistributions for 40 hours. That means 5 days per week, right? And that give you 55 hours. So then in this case, your cycle time should be 40 hours, right? I'm sorry, your operating hours, 40 hours. So that's 0.55 is your top time. And your cycle time is 35 hours. So then essentially you don't have any problem, do you? Because your cycle time is less than your top time. Top time is 55, so less than an hour. Or top time is about 30 minutes. That's what it means, right? But when you
It's 55 minutes. So
50,
like
5
yeah.
minutes. Oh, I see. Then you have to change 55 minutes. And total cycle time is 35 hours, 35 minutes per inventory redistribution. Is that correct? Yeah, so I think, it depends on your variance. Some cases will be done quickly, as you mentioned, and showed to us in your as-is chart. But some other cases are going through the full path, and then it takes 35 hours. So I think it's necessary for you to take a look at the variance and how it is being done, and then compare them. I think many of them are taking like less than an hour or two if it is a okay case. But some cases are taking longer, especially when you have to enter it into your process system, right? So that has to be taken into consideration.